look in the mirror now and I'm like, whoa, I'm finally in a body at age 57 that I always wanted to be in. I'm comfortable in this body. I never thought I'd see myself walking around a gym in shorts and a tank top and being comfortable with it, but I am, and it's amazing. And so it's just awesome.
Frederic, how did you find carnivore?
Well, I'm not sure where to start. I think probably back in my childhood is my mom and dad, they got a divorce, and she was my mother. We ended up staying with my mother, and she was, of course, looking for other partners and stuff. But anyway, she was kind of into partying and drinking and stuff like that. So a lot of times, she'd give us money to go to McDonald's or some, fast food restaurant or whatever. So I started eating bad food, at an early age. But back then, I was always a skinny kid growing up, and I was kind of had a not a good self-image, so I'd always wear oversized shirts and stuff, and because I was self-conscious of my physique, and since I was so skinny, I'd eat all this bad food, and my body could take it. And I would just go through life skinny most of the time, and then you go through life, and then eventually it catches up to you, and I think right around about 30, 35, that's when you start getting the tummy and the pouch. And so I think my physique looks similar to yours, before you started this. I was, man boobs and a stomach, but I guess they consider it now to be skinny fat. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but so anyways, that's how I was. Now I'm now 57. So that's when I started getting, skinny fat, I guess you'd call it. But, with the habits I grew up, instituted from my mom in an early age with my eating, it was mostly just junk food and chips. And then even all through my life, like through my 30s and 40s, I was a big sugar addict. I mean, they have some of, over here in America, they're probably, I don't know, 5 pounds bags of like gummy bears, you know what those are, and Sour Patch Kids. And I'd go eat some of that and, eat like half a bag of one of those a night, and just, no problem. And, so I was highly addicted to sugar, and I hardly had any protein in my diet at all and didn't really eat good. But then I ran into, once I graduated university, I was about 33 or so. I ran into some problems in my life, and it's nothing I want to get into now, but ended up pretty much screwing my life up. And then getting out of that took a few years, and then I started doing yoga, pretty aggressively for like 5 years. And I remembered, this is probably when I was in my 40s by then. But I remember I was pretty dedicated to it, and I remember doing some of these poses and like getting in some of these positions, and my stomach's just in the way, and I couldn't breathe, and I'm like, God, I got to do something about this. So you try some of these things like juicing and all that stuff, which is, it's a nightmare to prepare everything, and also I'm sure it doesn't do you any good. But eventually I stumbled across the keto diet. I think it was I think Ken Berry was one of the first ones that I really gravitated towards. And this was like back when he was just keto and had no thought of doing carnivore back then. And so I started doing that, but then that's also around the time when all these new keto products, were on the market, started coming out, because people figured out they could make money off it. So we're suddenly inundated with all these keto friendly products, which I don't know about that. There's all the seed oils in there and stuff. And a lot of times when they say it's keto friendly, it's because the portion sizes are so small. So if you can stick to those couple bites of portion sizes, you're probably all right. But someone like me with a big sugar addiction, I would just eat like a whole package or two of the things of whatever I'm buying. And I was really excited when I first started, and And then, I'm thinking I'm going to lose all this weight. I was probably up to about 200 pounds, and I'm 6 foot tall. So I was probably up to about 200 pounds, and I started going to the gym to do cardio and stuff. And I'm all excited, thinking I'm going to lose all this weight. Kept checking the scale all the time, and not much happened. So, anyways, that was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years before the pandemic, 2020, or the pandemic, if you want to call it that. But that's when I kind of, said, screw it. I'm just going to go back to the way I was eating before. And, I'm back to eating sugar and starches and pastas. And, sometimes I'd go get a loaf of garlic bread at the store, throw it in the oven, and eat the whole thing, total, basically sugar for dinner and the rest of the evening, So, anyways, right after the pandemic started, I started noticing my toes started getting numb, and I'm like, well, what the hell's this about? So I started doing some research, and I never heard of the word neuropathy, but that's what I have. So, then I go to search neuropathy, or not, I go into search, figure out I have neuropathy, find out the cause for this. And of course, it's probably prediabetes or diabetes, because that's what happens when you're on it. And I've never been one to go to doctors. So I haven't been to one in probably 30, 40 years. When I had acute things like a broken wrist or something, I'd go to see a doctor. But I think in this day and age, we need to be our own doctors, so we need to take charge of our own health. And so, I'd go on research stuff. And then by that time, I had the neuropathy in my feet, and you start listening to some of these people. It eventually turns from numbness to pain. And then pretty soon, you're thinking about amputating toes and feet and stuff like that. And it's not the road I want to go down. So last year, I knew I had to change, and I knew what was wrong. It was probably too much sugar. And so what I did is March 1st of last year, 2023, I started an aggressive fasting program. And, I was looking at people like Jason Fung and Benjamin Bickman, and even to some extent, Ken Berry, but also Mindy Zills and other people that promote these fasting protocols. So March 1st, I decided to fast for 10 days. And I did that. And when you first start fasting, you lose a lot of water weight. And I was 194 when that happened, 194 pounds. And then 10 days after that, I decided, I lost probably 15 pounds in those 10 days, maybe more. I can't recall it. And then I decided to, when I did eat, I'd eat for a day and then fast for 72 hours. And I did that for, I don't know, probably about a month or so. But at the end of that, I went from 194 down to 150. And I'm sure I probably lost some muscle mass, doing that whole regime. But I knew I needed to first I didn't need to, but the choice I took was to first lose the weight. And I lost the stomach, but I'm still skinny. I was at that time pretty skinny, and I got down to 150. I hit kind of a plateau. I couldn't get any lower than that, which is probably good. But then I started, rather than going back to keto, since I'm, a sugar addict, I decided to do carnivore instead. And so that's when I did start eating every day. It's been just carnivore. And since, I don't know, I probably started going to the gym, doing resistance training in about probably May of last year. And I was doing full body training for 3 times a week. And then being a skating kid growing up, I was kind of a stoner in high school, smoked a lot of pot and drank and all that stuff. So I always looked at these jocks and football players as just meatheads, and what's the point? I'd never liked doing that. But once I started doing it, I figured I love it. Now I crave it now, actually, after doing it for the first program I did was 3 months. And I put on quite a bit of muscle compared to what I was. And now I've designed my new resistance training program, which is a push-pull legs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of the programs out there, but it's a 6-day-a-week program. So now I get up early in the morning at 6 a.m., go to the gym, and when I have days off, I'm like, I crave just going there. And since I made the transition, I mean, well, first of all, let's go back to the fasting thing. I think what happened there is when you do something like that, like extended fast to start and then alternate day fasting or 72-hour fasting or whatever, you start really redefining your relationship with food, and you start seeing you like after the first 10-day fast. Well, the first 10 days, like I was fine for like up until about day 3 or 4, and then all of a sudden, it hits you because you're getting the keto flu and the withdrawals and all that stuff. But once you're past that, you realize, I still had a pretty big belly, so you don't have any hunger at all. Your energy increases, your mental clarity increases, and you feel like you could go forever without eating, But what's happening is your body's, getting the energy off the fat stores it has been storing for however long, 40 years or so in my case. And then I was never really hungry most of the time, and now still I'm not. But anyways, after you've transitioned through for me, after I transitioned through all the fasting and stuff, you get to a point where you're just on carnivore, no insulin spikes or any of that, no sugar spikes. It's like rarely am I ever hungry anymore, And so now when I do eat, what I'm getting at is you start being able to interpret your hunger signals a lot more clear than you could in the past because you're not got on the roller coaster ride of insulin and sugar spikes and all that stuff. And I think when I first started the fasting, I think I was pre-diabetic, and then I don't know, probably 3 months after I started doing that, so around again May, maybe April, I decided to get a CGM. So I got a CGM, and of course they show you it's a different number. It's not A1C, but it's pretty close to what it is. But anyways, I was probably in 6.1, 6.2, and the metrics for that to be pre-diabetic, you have to be about 5.7. And so I was probably pre-diabetic, but I'm not going to go to a doctor. I'm just going to take care of my own health. And so since that time and now, my A1C has slowly crept down to 5.4 or 5.5, so I'm not pre-diabetic anymore. And the neuropathy in my feet, they're still numb to this day, but it's about half the feeling, half as bad as what it was when I first started. And I'm sure something like that's, again, it's probably taken decades to build up to the neuropathy. So I'm sure it's not going to heal overnight, but I think it probably will, if I keep doing this. And now I'm at a weight of about 160 to 163, but I'm a lot more muscular, I mean, I look in the mirror now and I'm like, whoa, I'm finally in a body at age 57 that I always wanted to be in. I'm comfortable in this body. I never thought I'd see myself walking around a gym in shorts and a tank top and being comfortable with it, but I am, and it's amazing, and so it's just awesome, the whole trip has been great. Other than, my feet still aren't completely healed, but I think they're on the way to being that way,
That's quite a journey. So can I just clarify? So you started fasting around March last year?
Yeah, March 1st, 2023.
Yeah. And when did that kind of move towards being carnivore?
Well, so it was carnivore immediately, pretty much, because the times I did eat, I thought, I was well versed in keto recipes and all that stuff. And, I'd make some of these keto ice creams that tastes exactly like ice cream, but with just erythritol in it. But, it triggers the cravings again, I think, in some way. And so I decided I'm just going to cut out all the fake the fake foods I was making to try and mimic the foods that I loved, and slowly your tastes change over time. And, occasionally I do still eat berries or an apple or, half an apple or something like that when I feel like it. But again, everything, as far as I'm concerned, I base what I eat can and cannot eat on my CGM and what's happening there. If I test a food and it spikes, over 130 or so, then I'm thinking, yeah, I probably shouldn't do that, And so occasionally, like I'll have, like I said, berries, raspberries, strawberries, and I don't know if you know the brand Lily's chocolate. It's made with erythritol and coconut oil, no seed oils, and it's pretty benign as far as chocolate goes. So I could have some squares of that. It doesn't hardly spike me out in the least bit, But there is some fiber in there. I think they use chicory root fiber or something like that. I'm not sure if that's very bad for you, but so.
So a couple of things stand out for me from what you've said. One of them is that I can very much relate to is like you never thought you would feel comfortable wearing the shorts and the tank top walking around the gym, right? Same. I never ever thought I would have a body where I didn't have that kind of beer belly looking thing. I never thought I'd see it. And it's a pretty good feeling. But the other thing that stands out to me is must feel pretty empowering to have completely taken back your health and be
Oh
able to
yeah.
manage it.
And even to go back to the gym thing, even now, like I'm in there at 6 a.m. every morning except for Sundays, but I'm still a little. I'm not as muscular as some guys, but then you do a kind of a comparison, and everybody in the gym's comparing each other. But you see some of these guys, they have bigger muscles and stuff, but they still have that big pooch and big belly and stuff. And I'm like, I'd much rather be here than I am there, even if they have more muscle mass. They're probably looking at me thinking, this guy's got it figured out. He's skinny, no stomach at all. I almost have abs again, or not again, but for the first time in my life, Of course, I've been kind of working on the abs too, but it's just it's actually it's a trip to be there in that place, thinking I never like it, never enjoy it at all.
Nice. So, are you still incorporating fasting into carnivore now?
I was after, not recently, but I was like, I know at any time, I still kind of use the scale as, it's kind of hard now, but I kind of use the scale as a metric, whether I should fast or not. And, but it's hard right now because I'm putting on muscle mass. So I was down to 150. I'm thinking that's great. I want to go down to 145, quit fasting and start eating right. But then, you start building muscle and get up to 162 and you think, well, this can't be fat because look at me in the mirror. I don't have the belly anymore or the love handles much. Still a little bit, but it's so. Anyways, I know at any point, again, you get into this type of diet, you're hardly ever hungry, and so I know at any point, if I wanted to, or if I'm just not hungry, I'm fine. I can go a day. And now, after doing so much fasting, like the 10 days followed by 72-hour fasts every, I'd eat fast 72 hours, eat a day, fast 72 hours. Did that for quite a while. It's a walk in the park, just being able to not eat for 2 or 3 days. It's like you don't even think about it hardly, So, but now I'm trying to put on muscle. So they say, in the resistance training, muscle building arena, they tell you to eat 1 pound of protein or 1 gram of protein for every pound of your optimal weight. So I'm trying to hit protein goals of 160 grams per day. So the reason I'm not fasting more, I think, is because I'm trying to get the protein in there for muscle building. You know what I mean?
So on that, how often are you eating each day, and what are the meals made up of?
So I eat twice a day usually, and it's the same thing. That's another thing. I never thought I would be able to eat the same crap every day, and it's not crap. It's good, nutritious food, but for the lack of words, and my vocabulary is kind of bad at times. But anyways, um, I'll wake up, go to the gym, come back home by 8 a.m. and then eat 2 hard-boiled eggs, and then go. I run a business too, which is Otis Kratom. Go do what I have to do there, come back, walk the dog, come back, and then around 12 or 1, maybe 2, depending on how late I get home, I'll have the same thing, just 4 pieces of bacon, about 4 ounces of salmon, and 3 eggs, and I eat cheese and salsa, stuff that won't spike my sugar. And also, I've found out that I'm also a beekeeper. I have like about 60 hives, so it's hard not to be a beekeeper and not be able to eat the honey. So I also found out that when I can't eat honey as long as I eat the eggs first. I put the honey on my salmon, and I buy salmon from Costco and smoke it myself. So I always have, smoked salmon in the fridge that's ready to go. And then I put, maybe a tablespoon or a little bit more on the salmon and eat all that. And I hardly spike any blood sugar or any insulin. Thomas D. Lauer he recently, a couple days ago, put out a study or a transmission, a video on YouTube talking about 12 studies of how beneficial honey is for you, and it actually might be helping people with their insulin resistance. So, I'd probably say I'm about 95% carnivore through all this. But so anyways, first meal of the day is 4 pieces of bacon, 4 ounces of salmon, 3 eggs, some cheese, and then I'm done until I'll go to yoga a lot of times in the evening and be home about 7:30 or 8, and then I'll alternate depending on whether I have yoga that night or not. If I have yoga, I'll probably eat just a pound of ground beef with Montreal seasoning on it, salt, pepper, and whatever spices I have in there, because it's so fast and easy. On the nights I don't do that, I'll have probably about, probably 12 to 16 ounce steak, which is top sirloin. And that's pretty much the only food I eat, other than what I mentioned before, which might be a few berries or Lily's chocolate, some peanuts, stuff that's protein, but nothing that spikes me, at all above 130. So, and like I said, my main goal is not to be 100% carnivore, because that's what carnivores do. It's my health and my A1C, specifically my insulin and my blood sugars. So that's the focus for me, is to not eat foods that are going to increase my blood sugar. So that's it. That's what I eat.
Nice. So, how have people around you reacted to you eating this way?
Well, my girlfriend, we've been together for 30 something years. I can't remember, but other than about 8 years when I fucked up my life and we weren't together. But she's always been, she grew up as a ballerina, had just huge legs from all that when she was a kid. She's always just running around doing all these fitness things all the time. And so as far as she goes, she doesn't really blink at what I do, because I'm crazy anyways. So, whether it's extreme carnivore, she's not going to do it, but she's kind of a follower in a sense, to where if I start doing stuff, she'll gravitate more towards that. So, at one time we were both doing keto, and but that wasn't working. But anyways, she's not one of those types that's eating, sugar all the time and fast food, McDonald's and all that stuff. And other than that, I don't really have a lot of friends, not a lot of social people. I mean, I have a lot of acquaintances and stuff, but I try not to preach about it. If somebody asks, I'll tell them, and I don't care what they say, whether they like it or not, or whether they're going to do it or not. If they want to, they can, and if they want to learn more, I'll tell them. But and happily I'll tell them too, but I'm just not gonna, you know, preach it.
Mm. So, what does the future hold for you? And as far as is this kind of your way of life now? There's no going back.
Yeah, once you have the why, in my case, it's a neuropathy in my feet. If you start, let's say, you start going, you have it. Okay, so if you buy the bullshit about what people tell you about eating meat and saturated fat and all that stuff, you're headed for a heart attack. Well, if that is true, let's concede that that is true, which we both know it's not. You either have a choice between doing this and dying of a heart attack instantly or whatever, or going down the diabetes route and getting limbs amputated, feeling like crap all the time, just being bloated, and then dying with all these, other side effects from diabetes. So in my case, I'm going to choose carnivore. I'd rather die from a heart attack than die from all the complications from diabetes or something like that. So in my case, yeah, I don't see myself changing. Every once in a while, like I said, if I have a craving, I'll have something, some fruit or something, but it's never going to be the bags of gummy bears or the loaves of bread or, any of that stuff. I just can't see myself doing it. And again, your tastes change. So now when I'm hungry, I start thinking about beef. I don't start thinking about sugar and all that other crap. So I don't see myself changing. The why I have is a pretty good motivator for me.
Yeah. So when people will say to you, "Oh, but doesn't it get boring?" What would you say to that?
It doesn't. I mean, when you're outside looking in, you would think that, and that's what I thought too. But I don't get bored. I mean, and I don't look now. Like I said, the whole fasting thing kind of changes the relationship with food. It's not entertainment anymore or passing time and boredom. Now it's when I eat, it's for a specific reason to fuel my body and to build muscle or whatever. So you kind of, once you go through the whole fasting thing, you kind of have a new relationship with foods, if that makes sense.
So I should actually say happy anniversary because it's basically a year now, right?
Right.
So having been on it a year, if you were giving someone advice about how to get started most easily to kind of minimize the risk of going backwards, what would you recommend?
I guess it depends on the person, but because I think the way to do it is to start off with a pretty aggressive fasting stage, like I did, like 10 days or whatever. But if I were to tell my girlfriend something like that, she can't go more than 12 hours without eating. So in her case, I would say just cut the cord and go straight to meat and cut out everything else until you get past the keto flu and all that, and actually past the palate change, once you get are not craving the sugar and the starches and all that anymore. But if other people, if they have a why, like something like I'd had, started getting neuropathy in their feet, I would say, here, this is what you need to do immediately. Fast. I would recommend. I'm not a doctor, but if I was, I would say 10 days. And most people in that condition, they're pretty overweight and bloated anyway, so nothing harmful is going to happen other than they're going to lose some weight. Take some electrolytes for sure, but that's, I guess, like I said, I guess it depends on the person. But if you're one of those people that could rip the band-aid off and just do it, then just do it. I don't think I could see myself slowly easing into carnivore from eating all the gummy bears and the Sour Patch Kids and just sugar. I can't do it because the craving is just too much.
Yeah, I can see that as being a problem for because I think I'm in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was the keto snacks that threw me off
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
keto many times over the years, and that's basically because I'm an abstainer. I'm either on or I'm off, and so
and also
definitely.
I've had, like I said, addiction problems in the past, so I know what it's like to be half in and half out. It never ends up that way. You always ended up being fully into whatever bad thing you're doing,
So, Frederic, if people want to reach out to you, do you have a YouTube or an Instagram or somewhere they can get in contact?
So I have two channels, but one of them, it's called Flat Earth Beekeeping, but there's not much on there. But I do want to document this next season, which starts here in April, middle of April, and see what happens if I have the time. But I also do another site called Not the Flat Earth Files Podcast, which is, I'm just a mirror for some podcast I listen to, George Hobbs' podcast, and I put it on YouTube. But after saying that, people could, if they wanted to comment on how crazy I am, because I'm a flat earther, not only that, but also a carnivore, then they can go spew their hate there if they want to do. So
no worries. Well, I'll link to those in the description. And Frederic, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your time.
Sure, it's my pleasure.